All right, thank you so much for joining us on our 103rd edition of Lunch Out Loud Ottawa. My name is Nick Pachuski.
And I'm Andrew Miller.
And of course, we're the podcast that talks to the people, places, events, and music that make this city the incredible city that it is. And before we get to our very special guest this week, Jason Laurin, why don't we check this out?
Hey, I'm Alex.
I'm Nick.
I'm Van.
And I'm Frank.
We are Lights in August, and you're about to hear some of our songs from our newly released EP right here on Lunch Out Loud. If you like what you hear, come see us play on January 23rd at Zayfod's downtown Ottawa. See you there.
Myself believe I never fell down to my knee, but now I'm begging and praying for a chance. And maybe if I fall asleep, then I could dream of something sweet, like being by your side. But I need something more than love. Did I just get lost in my own town? Or is this maybe what it feels like to be found? Either way, I know I'll be okay.
All right, thank you so much, Lights in August. So that song was Lost and Found, and of course, they're playing Friday at Zayfod's with Cats, who have already been on the show. So if you have no plans for Friday and want to listen to some live music, that should be a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. All right, so we are here with Jason Laurin at 430 Parkdale. Jason is the head chef of Essence Catering. So this is a lovely location, lovely catering company.
Yeah. If you can't find it, it's tucked right beside the fire hall.
Because the adjective people always use when they talk about me is lovely.
And so just like every episode, we're going to do about 10 minutes talking to Jason. And then we're going to meet up with Jen from Foodie Prince, who this week will be talking about 3 events: Dine Wine Dinner Time, Gatineau Winter Beer Fest, and the Bruce House Wild West Kitchen Party. So I'm excited to hear about all this. I have no idea about a couple of them, so it's going to be a lot of interest, and we're all going to learn today.
All right.
So Jason, thank you so much for having us here today.
Right on, man.
It's an absolute pleasure. So with all of our guests, we like to get to know born and raised in Ottawa.
No.
Just backgrounds.
Where are you from?
Oh, yeah. I was born in Toronto, raised mostly in Montreal. Spent
nice.
some time in Texas.
I wanted to ask you about the Dallas.
Yeah,
How is Dallas?
Dallas is...
How did you get to Dallas?
A little surreal, I have to say. I got through Dallas, my dad owned a corporation down there in like the late 80s through the turn of the millennium. Okay. And he just gave us my ex-wife and I, a chance to avail ourselves of winter and go down there. So I finished a hotel restaurant management degree down there. Oh, okay. And that was what I was doing down there and working and just trying to soak up Texas. It's a real trip, man. It's a real trip down there.
Did you learn a lot of food kind of traditions from there? Or?
I did. So the big difference between kitchens down there and kitchens up here is the makeup of the populations that work in them. Down there, I had a kitchen of 25 employees at one time, and I think 23 of them were Mexican, and 2 were kind of downtrodden Texans, right? So you learn a lot. I mean, you really do. It's a pretty wild situation.
And how did they like a Canadian running the show there?
That's a good question. I don't really know that they saw me any differently than any other gringo. No, I don't. I don't know.
I was going to say a lot of nodding and smiling.
I had a couple that really took it upon themselves to teach me Spanish. So I guess maybe they liked me a little bit. Yeah. But it's a tough restaurant world down there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty hardcore.
But that's interesting. That's for sure. So how did you end up coming to Ottawa then?
I had a chance to go to the Cordon Bleu, and I had been a chef for a while, and I didn't really have too much in the way of the formal training that I wanted. I'd worked for other chefs, and I became a chef, but I hadn't really gone to school to be a chef. So I came here to the Cordon Bleu in, I don't know, late 90s, middle 90s, something like that.
Yeah.
You were mentioning before that it was in a different location than it is now?
Yeah. So beautiful building they're in now, aren't
Yeah.
they? Yeah. So we used to have a floor in the building at Prince of Wales and Meadowlands and behind the Tim Hortons. So the school was pretty small back then.
But it was still a notorious school back then for cooking.
Absolutely.
And it was just on a one floor.
Just one floor in
Wow.
I thought it was a residential building. I mean, I guess there was more businesses in there, but it was kind of weird. It was a strange place to go to school.
How many other people?
Wasn't what I was expecting when I came
Really?
from Texas. I have to be honest. I was
Yeah.
expecting something more like what they have now. Got there and I was like,
Oh.
"Where's the school in this building?"
Wow.
It was kind of weird.
Was there a lot of people in your graduating class or whatnot?
I think we were probably about 20 in our graduating class. Something like that.
Any other names that are still in Ottawa that you recall? Or
I was there at the same time as Renee, but
Okay.
we weren't in the same class. I think he graduated just ahead of me. That's probably the biggest name of somebody who I can think of that was there around the same time.
is the Cordon Bleu course, is that something that a lot of younger up-and-coming chefs do as well? Or do they do more kind of hands-on training and then just go from there?
Is it kind of like a master's program or
Well,
something?
Yeah.
but I don't look so much today because I don't really know what young people are really doing, aside from
Yeah.
when they come into the kitchen here and I can kind of talk to them about it. When I went to school, or when I started this whole journey, it was important to get in and work somewhere,
Yeah.
and then possibly go to school afterwards, right? I think they're reversing that now, and you're going to school first, and then you're kind of working on your way.
What do you think is a better option, personally?
I actually think it doesn't matter what school you go to or what track you find yourself on. If you're committed to making,
Yeah.
learning and paying attention and honing your craft and just getting better, you're going to do that no matter what. The schooling or the places you work are kind of irrelevant, right? Like I learned way more reading and practicing than I ever did in any school classroom.
Yeah.
So I
And
can't
odds are
really
whatever-
say there's a better way,
Yeah.
right? I think it's really the individual. I think we have a different view of what it means to really apply yourself today than we did, say, 20 years ago.
I was reading your story from last night.
Yeah, there's just a very different mentality to things now. I don't think that necessarily produces great chefs, but there's always, within every group, there's at least a couple that are really good.
Yeah.
Oh, so it translates like that. Are you seeing differences from when you got out, when you're younger, or the new graduates now?
I'm sure when I graduated, I thought I was the greatest chef ever as well.
You still do.
So yeah, I still do. But it's so it doesn't surprise me to still see that. I do think that the kind of the cult of personality for chefs has made people think that it's probably a more glorious position than it really
Yeah.
is. And we have a lot of people who probably shouldn't be in the industry. I'm sure that's like every industry.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to Ottawa, I know a lot of people value your opinion on
He says it with a smile, though, doesn't he?
value your opinion on what restaurants to maybe go to. What are some that you like going to? Because I was
So
reading you.
right around here we have two. The Wellington Gastropub, since the very day it opened up, has been a stellar restaurant. Market-driven food that's just really prepared properly. There's no frills. It's just great food, right? Next door, I really like Supply and Demand. I think they get it, from a young chef and a pretty hip place. I just think they get it.
That's becoming pretty much a go-to for
Yeah.
an anniversary
Absolutely.
or a birthday.
Absolutely.
Seeing everybody going there.
Absolutely. And then I've never been disappointed going to Navarra, like ever.
I've still never been there.
Yeah, with Renee, and he
it's a
changed
price.
it up.
Yeah, he just recently changed it up, so I guess I'm due for another visit before too terribly long. Right?
Yeah, so Renee changed it up to 5 or 7 small plates, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of a
something like that,
$70
yeah. prefix
kind of thing.
And that's what we like. So when he started out working and when I started out working, a lot of restaurants, a lot of French restaurants were prefix menus, right?
Yeah.
And I still love that as a service. I mean, I really do. It's hard to make it work. So I'm interested.
Why
to
is it
see-
hard to make it work?
I just think it's a lot of work. It's just
Okay.
really a lot of work, right? And you're changing it up constantly, right? Versus having a menu that's just got a couple of specials. You're like literally changing that shit up every day.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of work. It's a lot of work.
A little more, I guess, liberating from the chef's point of view, though. No, to be able to kind of experiment a little bit.
But with
and
the
try
cost of where
different things.
food is, so
It's a
the
lot
cost
of
of our
variables.
raw products has shot through the roof in the last 2 or 3 years, yet our prices that we're charging people are not keeping pace with those
Yeah.
increases, right? If you do follow those increases, people just aren't going to purchase your services, right? So, we're seeing diminishing returns. So I'd like to see people eat out more,
Yeah.
to make up for that. Because a lot of people can't charge what it's costing them theoretically to put that food on the plate, right? So you've got to, it's got to come from somewhere else, right?
Do you think, I know that a lot of restaurants are now trying to support more local and purchase locally.
Yep.
And at the start that's a little more expensive, I'm guessing, than buying from big box stores for products. But is that getting cheaper as more and more people are buying?
I think we'll see this summer, right? So
Yeah.
it's going to be I think this will be an interesting year with where the price of oil is and where inflation on other things is going, and bad crops last year in the States. It'll be interesting to see what the costs are this summer when the market's open. Typically, I haven't ordered from a lot of big box restaurant delivery services because a lot of what we do are canapes, and they're very size dependent and so forth. So every time I was ordering bulk, I really wasn't getting entirely what I wanted. So I know all my farmers, at least regionally, like down at the market just down the road here.
Yeah, Parkdale,
Yeah, I mean, we're there every day, right? And Rochon Farms has been great to us.
So Rochon's one of your biggest farm. What
from
are some
day
of
one.
your big suppliers?
Antonio, it depends on what I'm buying down there. Antonio's is a nice one too. But Rochon, I've tried to use them mostly through the summers, right? And then what I don't get from them, I used to get at Urban Spice, right? And I'd go up and I'd hand pick everything. But their cost is just
astronomical.
It's freaking nuts, man. I almost had a meltdown at the cash register the other night. It's like, are you for real? Right? So that's why I say this summer coming up, it should be quite interesting to see with where the cost of food is.
Do you think, you mentioned that you can only charge X amount of dollars per plates, and it's kind of tricky. Do you think that there's something to do with the level of competition in our city? Like, it seems that there's always a new restaurant popping up.
Well, we have too many restaurants. Like,
Yeah.
John Taylor hit the nail right on the head when he said it. There's just too many restaurants, right? We're only a population of 1 million people, and of those million, it's a pretty small number of the people who go out consistently,
Absolutely,
right? We're not Toronto, we're not New York, we're certainly not Montreal, right? And they have cultures. They have more eating cultures. We don't.
Do you not believe we can create that eating culture here, though?
It's a vibe. So I had this argument the other day. I've been here for 16 years, and although from day one, everybody's always been saying it's getting better, it still lacks that vibe. Sure, we have some great chefs working here. You can't deny that.
Unbelievable
Right? Yeah,
events,
there's
too,
some
and a
great
lot of events,
talent,
too.
and there's lots of great events, right? But we don't have that vibe. And if you go down most streets at 9:30 at night, most of them are closed. And if they're not closed, it's somebody sitting at the bar just finishing their drink, right?
Especially
in
on
the other
nights
cities,
like in January when it's minus 30 something.
yeah, like in Toronto, Montreal, Dallas, we're turning the tables at 10,
Wow.
and we're doing another seating. That's the vibe I'm talking about, and it's not just restaurants and nightclubs. I mean, it translates to everything, right?
Yeah. So I guess a public servant vibe, I guess, because that's
I was trying to leave them alone in this conversation. I wasn't going to berate them or anything, but I think it's pretty typical of capital cities. From what I hear Washington's very similar. It's kind of
They got to get up and go to the office. in the
Washington,
morning.
Washington has a few the hotels around White House that are always going to be packed, but
Yeah.
other than that,
It's
pretty
pretty
slow. So.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that that's part of the reasoning that we're seeing more of a trend for people opening up, say, food trucks, catering businesses, as opposed to the brick and mortar restaurant locations?
I think that's just a function of the city is a nightmare to deal with in opening anything. Look at how long it's taken some of the places to open up.
Yeah.
When a lot of them have to, like Preston Street, you have to be grandfathered.
Even
have to be a
here,
restaurant.
this took me a year to open.
Oh, really?
A year,
Really?
or pretty darn close to it, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of it's just costs a huge sum of money, right? Whereas, if you'd told me